Welcome to the Tomorrow's World Today podcast. We sit down with experts, world-changing innovators, creators, and makers to explore how they're taking action to make tomorrow's world a better place for technology, science, innovation, sustainability, the arts, and more. In this episode, George Davison, who is also the host of Tomorrow's World Today on the Science Channel, talks with comedian and mental health speaker Gabby Bonesso about her journey with mental health, comedy, and motivational speaking. Gabby explains how comedy is more than punchlines. It's about connecting, encouraging, and changing lives.
Gabby, could you say hello to everybody?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Gabby has a unique background. She is an award-winning stand-up comedian and a motivational speaker. So what kind of audiences do you usually talk to, Gabby?
Oh, wow. I mean, honestly, I always say I work from pre-K to AARP. You know, everybody needs comedy. Everybody needs a positive message. Everybody needs to be reminded they're not alone and that life is hard, but it's also so much fun. And I just try to put that energy into everything that I do.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. If you're an inspired person, you can create all sorts of stuff, right? When we keep ourselves in that kind of mode, things seem to come along a little easier, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how about this? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to get to where you are? You wear a lot of hats. So can you just give us a little background, please?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Gabby Bonesso, and I started my life in the suburbs outside of Pittsburgh. I was a very energetic, wild kid. I wasn't like bad. I was a very like rule following. I had very quirky. I was really into Katharine Hepburn and the MGM golden years, and I would just talk about that to anyone who would listen. But when I started college, my father got very sick with cancer, and that process, I think, prompted a lot of mental health stuff with me, and it started this journey where I was getting diagnoses. I was told I had bipolar disorder. And at that same time, I was performing theater and being encouraged to do stand-up comedy. So I started doing stand-up comedy, and my comedy is centered in mental health and grief because my father had passed away. And right away, you know, comedy bookers are like, nah, we don't like those kind of topics. And I'm like, but this is my life. And through that, people would hear me talking openly about mental health, and they're like, hey, why don't you come talk about that and still be funny? And that's sort of how that channel opened up. But I continued to do stand-up and travel to New York and do things. So I was winning awards here in Pittsburgh. During that time, my mother got sick, and I wanted to be her full-time caregiver. And during that time, I developed a daytime program called The Josh and Gab Show, where we're an assembly program, and we go into schools, and we encourage kids to love themselves, love their school, and be kind. It's pretty basic, but it's really fun and high energy and like vaudeville-esque. It's a lot of, you know, live music, original music that we've written, live stories that are true to me, and a lot of interaction with the kiddos. And so I started that while my mother was sick, and then she passed away. And, you know, that's been a whole other journey of focusing more on the mental health speaking. So I've been doing that a ton. I was lucky to be on a list with the Dalai Lama as one of the top 100 resilient speakers in the world by a clinic out in San Francisco. Just really interesting stuff. So during the pandemic, my mental health career started taking off. And I also found a new therapist who started treating me for trauma. And through that, we discovered that I didn't have bipolar disorder and that I have ADHD and I'm on the spectrum. And the trauma therapy and the proper diagnoses has just changed my life. I go to therapy once a month, and I'm writing a book with my therapist currently. So that's where we are. And I just launched a life coaching business too. I took a course to become a trauma-informed life coach. So that's a lot. I can understand that.
Well, you know what, though? It's interesting because, you know, how all innovations, inventions, creations in most places, it starts with, you know, your ability to do an observation of something. And it sounds to me like you found a niche. And that's what a lot of innovations start in this like discovery and niche of something. So are you, in your comedy work, are there a lot of people that do your kind of work, or are you a very unique bird in that space.
Yeah, very unique because, see, at the end of the day, I think, a typical comedian, it's for the laugh. And I'm now at a point where, like, no, 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 no. It's about, like, I want this whole audience to feel safe with me. And how am I going to achieve that? Yes, I want them to laugh, but I also don't want them, it's not at their expense. I'm never going to punch down. It's a real, you have to be very delicate, too. I know a lot of comedians will talk about mental health in a comedy club, and it can be very triggering. Like, it would not do well at a conference. Like, there is a very different tone you must have when you are speaking to people within that community. And yeah, I am very lucky because in that sense where, a lot of these conferences, they want that humor. So they're like, hey, we could bring you in. You could tell these real stories of your mental health, but you can still be funny. So yeah, that is like a nice little thing that I have going for me.
I think you're an innovator personally, and you've
Thank
been
you.
very successful at what you're doing. This innovative approach that you've taken, so you're getting people to laugh, and are we also getting some therapy from that? Is there an innovative approach to give people a better health?
I think so, because every time I just share, like, even the smallest truth that I don't think is a big deal, I'm just saying it because I'm telling you my story. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of people who will come up to me and just be like, that is me. They will whisper their diagnoses to me. They will tell me that, like, they ask me questions like how they should follow up with a therapist, what type of therapist. I do anything I can in my power to guide people to where they need to be. That's what I think it's so much more community building when you do it this way. There is no slight to just being funny. I think that is a beautiful skill, and God bless everyone who does that. I knew early on that wasn't for me. I remember being a comedian and thinking of the movie A Beautiful Mind. And I remember him being like, I love math, but I'm creating a new math. Like, I don't want the math that it's been. I want a new math. And that's how I felt when I started doing stand-up. I was like, no, no, no. There has to be a way where I can be real, I can change people's lives and be funny. Like, it doesn't have to be just funny. I don't know. There's always a depth in there for me. And I think it's that depth that connects to people.
So when you're doing that, not when you're on screen work or when you're up on stage, but are you thinking through how am I going to take my act to the next level? Like, is there research and development in your thinking? And you take time to do that?
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, it's so wild because, like, now that I know my brain, like, I didn't know how my brain functioned. I used to beat myself up for how my brain functioned. And now that I know how fast my brain is working rapidly, and I am doing that because every gig is, oh, so this is what they like about me. Like, I have built such confidence in these after show conversations of, oh my God, all I have to do is just be authentic and I got this. So, like, in the old days before a gig, I'd be, sick to my stomach, going over everything. I mean, just going over my material over and over. And now I do not, because I know if I'm not grounded, if I don't do like a meditation practice, I'm not grounded in the moment, I can't see my audience, therefore I can't connect to them. I mean, it's for them. I also take that approach. I've stopped being a selfish artist, and I'm sort of like, no, I'm here to entertain. I'm here to get you to think. So let's meet you. You're my audience. I want to connect with you. And that's really, really helped me.
So 2 good points. I mean, so you're doing live testing on an audience, right? I mean, in the field of innovation, you do have to do your testing. It's beautiful because you get to do your test and then you get to feel the impact of that test. And if it doesn't work, you adjust and go in a different direction, right?
Exactly.
So really, it's like it's good use of observational skills, innovative thinking, and practice until you get it right. And that's wonderful. And then are you able to come in with a certain format that is repeatable so you kind of know, so if somebody's booking you, that they kind of already know in advance that you're going to go in that direction, so you're a safe hire for that direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say this is one of my assets. So with the mental health speaking and with Josh and Gab, I like to say that I will make it unique for the client. So if it's a mental health speaking event and let's say it's a trauma-informed conference, I will say I will stick to just trauma-informed conversation, my stories of trauma. If it's something else, we focus neurodivergence, autism, I will tell my true stories of what it's been like living this whole time not knowing I was on the spectrum.
Yes.
Just all of that, so I can gear it. And then with our Josh and Gab shows, like, every school has their own positive behavior format. They all have their own mascot. They all have their own vibe. And so we create the show to be that for that school. So we'll create an original song for your school that is from us to you, and then we leave. It's something I love to do. It's almost like being a Hallmark card writer for each person specifically. It's great.
Yeah. You know what you mentioned earlier too, that you had a transition. You went from creating what you wanted to create because you thought that's what you wanted to create, to saying, no, I have an audience and I want to serve that audience. And that forces a different way of thinking, doesn't it? If you put your audience first, it lets you create a better product, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yes. And I truly feel I learned that back in my 20s. I got a gig with American Eagle. They hired me to host all their videos. They hired me to write the video ads. I did live performances, and having like a corporate client that I had to stick to I had to write jokes about their products and then talk to the CEO and have him decide if they were funny or not over speakerphone. Like, that truly made me the best writer that I could be. Like, I credit that experience with me learning how to write for each client.
That's wonderful. That's one of the things about innovation too, is that storytelling is such a huge piece of it. And so could you kind of just dream it out with me for a minute? Like, if you were going to compose a story that you were going to bring out on stage, do you have a process that you go through to get your mind into that kind of comedy? Are you writing? Are you talking out loud to yourself? Do you have somebody else that you talk to out loud with? How do you do that?
I love this. You're the best interviewer ever, George. Okay, so back when my mother was alive, she was truly my audience. Every new idea, I presented it to her in our own one-on-one open mic style, and she was just such a gift from God. I loved my mother, the best person in the world. Now I do it often on my own, or if it's like, especially comedy, that's when you can kind of get into conversation with like a friend and be like, oh yeah, this happened to me, and if they're cracking up, I'm like, good joke. So yeah, I do work it in that way. But one thing that I think is kind of interesting, especially working with kids, is so from this is my 13th season with Josh. We've gone into schools for 13 years now. And the very first year I told a story, and it's a true story, about a time where a girl in my class brought in glue sticks for everyone except me. And it really messed me up as a little kid because, like, I didn't like my classmates. Nobody stuck up for me. Like, I just remember that whole first grade year not really having any friends and being isolated. And so I tell the story in a funny way, but throughout the 13 years, that story has changed because kids change, and I've learned to read kids better. The version of the story now is so funny. It's so youthful. It's so dear. But it took 13 years almost to get it to be perfect. So, like, I don't give up on it.
Come on, you got me hooked. I want to hear this glue stick story.
Oh my God, it's a long story. It's honestly like an 8-minute chunk. It is a full-blown live comedy performance for kids where I'm imitating my mother, and she's a dino mom who doesn't let me have glue sticks, and she's growling at me at Giant Eagle, and I'm begging her for glue sticks, and then finally this girl's bringing them in, and I'm so excited, but I'm the kid who doesn't know how to use a glue stick, so I kiss it and name it Brian and dance with it, and all the kids are like, what is wrong with Gab? So then when the girl steals it back from me, no one looks out for me, and the teacher sends me to the nurse, and I'm just sobbing.
Oh my God.
And then the nurse sends me home, and Dino Mom's like, you weren't supposed to have a glue stick, and it's the worst day ever. And then all the little kids are like, Gabby, I would have given you my glue stick, and it's just like this beautiful moment. And then I return to the school, and they all have glue sticks for me. It becomes very emotional. My inner child heals every show. It's wild.
That's great. Because that, just seeing also how you just talked about it, that's storytelling as well. And I was just loving how, you were so absorbed in telling that story that you absorbed me as your audience. And I think that's really an important, for people need to learn. That's a skill. And so it's great to see you into your work so much because it really comes out.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really commit. You know what I mean? I think that Josh and I will be performing at 9 a.m. for, kindergarten to second grade. And he's doing a back bend guitar solo. And I'm giving it my all in these monologues. And I'm like, wow, I love that. I love that, we value people. Whether you're 5 or 50, you matter to us. Here's your show,
That is fabulous. And I'm going to focus on that word commit, because I think that is part of the secret to the science of creating something for any audience. It doesn't matter if it's an audience buying a product off the shelf at Giant Eagle or Walmart, or if it's a service that it's you have to commit. And if you're going to tell the story, you can't half tell a story.
Exactly.
Yeah, you better believe in what you're doing, or it's not going to come out right.
True.
So what inspires you, Gabby?
That's so funny. Honestly, of the last 4.5 years, my biggest inspiration is my little godson. His name's Oscar. This is all, like, most of this art is his behind me. Not this one. This was from a high school kid. But he's just, not to sound corny, but it's like that Jerry Maguire line. Like, he literally makes me want to be a better person. Like, I always want to be that person for Oscar that he's like, that's my godmom. And not because I'm on stage and not because I could be in the paper or on TV. None of that. Like, I just want him to, like, have the tools to have the best, healthiest life possible. And I want to be that for him.
That makes sense. I don't, do you think you could have become what you are today without difficulty?
No, let me tell you right now, George, Gabby Bonesso 1.0 before the reboot, I was a very, like, because I hadn't lived. I was, my mom and dad, I was their 5th kid. They were able to raise me in a nice suburban neighborhood, unlike their first kids. My brothers were raised in the projects. I was in this, like, beautiful prefabricated suburban house. Yeah. I think I hadn't lived life. I think there was like a judgment, a non-living life judgment that Gabby Bonesso 1.0 possessed. Because I didn't know what the world was like. Now I have, my book, I could have a series of books. Let's just put it that way. I have seen things. I have been places. Yes. And it's given me so much more compassion. And a thing with trauma, I will say, once you turn that corner of, just constantly being brought down by past trauma, those triggers, there's a thing called glimmers. And so you kind of get rid of the triggers and you replace them with glimmers. And glimmers are those little moments in every day that make life worth living. And before you know it, life becomes just glimmer, glimmer, glimmer. And it's a great place to be, Yeah,
that's a great way to say it. I like that. Yeah, glimmer's a great word.
I love that word. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, all right. I want the audience to know a little more about you so that, first of all, you have a website. Please tell us what it is. And then a little more about, like, what are the services and the content that they'll find if they go there?
Okay, so gabbonesso.com is my main website. And from there, it'll take you to my mental health website, which is Ride the Wave with Gab. I don't know if there's a link to my Josh and Gab website, but that's just joshandgab.com. But on the gabbonesso.com, it's sort of a link tree, and you will see everything. So I put out a comedy album last year called Gab Bonesso, Tragic Comedian. I raised, in the first month of releasing it, I raised money for 2 different nonprofits, but now it's available for free, so anyone can listen to it. I have 2 original singles up on there. I have links to my YouTube channel. You pretty much can find articles about me, interviews I've done with NPR, just things to just learn more about Gab. But what I can offer is pretty much, and in terms of entertainment, I mean, live programming, producing, writing. I used to work with a company where I helped write, like, Native honor speeches. I've done 3 eulogies in my life. I mean, I have a lot of writing skills, a lot of entertaining skills. But yeah, live programming, comedy, mental health talks, the Josh and Gab show. I write music. I do workshops. I've done improv comedy workshops. I don't stop. And then my life coaching, I look at it as a, you're getting a one-on-one with a stand-up, so I'm going to keep you laughing. I've got more energy than a puppy or a toddler, so I'm going to throw all of that into you and making your goals achievable. I'm a trauma-informed life coach, so maybe you don't even realize you've gone through trauma and have some stuck points, and if I keep hearing that, like stopping you from reaching your goals, I'm going to bring it up, and we're going to figure out a way for you to treat that and get you the help that you need. So yeah, I just think I have a lot to offer.
Yeah, you really do. That's why I want to make sure people can find you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about preparation for your audience then. Okay. How do you prepare in order to make sure you get the end result that you're looking for?
That's a great question. Going into it, I want to kind of have an idea of who my audience is because I want to know what we're going for. So, for instance, over the fall, I did a lot of mental health speaking for adults who work with kids who have either been through trauma or autistic, ADHD. So that was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I can really give that story. You know what I mean? I'm giving you the perspective of a kid who, the school did put me in group therapy in middle school to getting therapy in college. Like, it all happened, you know, a lot of the trauma was in childhood, so I can speak to that directly. It's a lot of prep of like knowing who I'm speaking to. I ask a ton of questions. I don't go into anything without like a Zoom meeting. You know, I'm like, hey, can we sit down? I want to know exactly what you want. How many people are there? Who am I speaking to? You know,
so you're doing market research, just like if you were like Procter and Gamble, you would be, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to gather a whole bunch of data on how people wash clothes.
Yeah.
and then you pull all that data in, and then it helps you to design a solution for that audience.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild that you're doing the same. It's like a very similar R&D gathering process.
I appreciate you like, I don't think I even realized that I would, you know, I would have given it a name. I'm just like, oh, well, I have to know this stuff or I can't do my job. But I noticed that too with in the Josh and Gab show, because, you know, 13 years ago, I didn't have a little godson. So I would like, we'd be doing shows and kids would be like, oh, this is my favorite show, or I like this video game. And so I would go home and research and be like, what are these video games? And then work that into my, oh yeah, hey, I was playing Minecraft now I actually play Minecraft. But back then I would lie and pretend I played Minecraft. You know, just you do research. You want to know your audience, and you want to know what the trending things are for whatever age you're performing for. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's how innovation happens. Do your research, find the problem spots. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun.
Let's talk about digital marketing for a minute. I mean, how has the role of, you know, digital marketing evolved and impacted you and your business?
It's wild. It's you know, in a lot of ways, starting off, it was a gift. Like, wait a minute, we have free advertise. I can just go online and put this is what, you know, that was really exciting. But then to also deal with mental health, social media is exhausting. It's trauma inducing. It's you know, you need to have boundaries even with that. So I'm really trying in 2025 to normalize for performers not to be on more than they need to be. Yes, use it for advertising, get your content out there, do what you need to do, but let's not live on the internet, because there's also other ways to promote. Word of mouth. People have like just given up on ads. You know, I do buy a lot of Google ads and like online ads like that, because I mean, they're cheap, they're easy. But billboards, I think there's lots of options. We don't have to just be limited to the digital landscape. I think we're going to get back to a lot more of like mailers and things. I don't know. I feel like old school techniques are going to be coming because the new techniques are kind of getting boring now. Yeah, I don't know. I just try to really keep my eye on everything. Like the way other people like tune things out that they don't agree with, I want to absorb everything, because I can't, you know, everybody is an audience and everybody is different and there's just so much information. So I do try to take it all in, but with boundaries and in healthy doses.
All right. So let's kind of shift gears for a second then. What do you think is the most exciting part of your work? What is it that, like, when you get up in the morning, you get excited and you get those feet on the floor and you're like, I'm going to go make it happen?
Oh man, I truly, George, like I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. Like truly, that I get to go entertain, speak, and tell my story, that people even want to listen to some, you know, girl from outside of Pittsburgh story. Like, it's wild. I just feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. But when I emote from people, when they're I mean, there's nothing better than little kids gut laughing at my storytelling, or loving my music, or even grown-ups being like, Gab, your story has saved my life. I had one woman, I had done a virtual mental health talk, and before the talk, multiple people had to reach out to this woman like, we know you're depressed, please just tune in, please come see this comedian. She tunes in, I do my performance. Afterwards, she writes a letter to the organizers saying it was the first time in a month she had showered. She had planned on starting exercise walking the next day based on what I said, that I made her feel less alone. I mean, those little moments of like, you could actually change a person's life. That's just wonderful. Being real. I'm the luckiest person in the world, George. And I don't have to do it at that level of celebrity. I mean, that doesn't seem very fun. Yeah. So I get to do it in my hometown, in my community, give back, and I get to travel. I mean, it's not that I haven't been. I mean, I've been to Canada, Mexico. I've been to 17 different states. I've performed, you know, all the major cities doing comedy. But yeah, I feel very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm lucky and blessed. It sounds like in the field of work, I do a lot of work in innovation. And one of the things I like to do is I like to identify problems that people have. And I think you can do noble, it's like a noble cause. If I can go find that problem and I can make it go away, it helps other people. You're utilizing your skills to help other people that are challenged in certain ways. It's no different than, we'll go back to Procter and Gamble again. People who weren't cleaning their clothes properly, and that's a problem for them. They're running around, they smell, or their clothes are a mess or whatever. And then so they came in with a noble cause. They figure out a way to make a better soap, and everybody's happy. And it's like they're going to your show. They might come in with struggles with whatever they're dealing with, and you've invented a solution for their to help them go to a better place, and that's admirable.
Thank you. Or at least get them to open their eyes and go, maybe I should talk to a therapist, or maybe I should take a walk, or whatever it is. Yeah. I really hope to promote that to people.
That's wonderful. Where do you see yourself, let's say, in 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, I say I don't want to be famous, but I would like a little bit doing a slightly better. I mean, I'm a renter right now. I wouldn't mind owning my own tiny home. That's a dream of mine. But no, in 5 years, what I would like to already have. I'd like to get this first. So the book I'm writing with my therapist is very specific. It's about my journey to healing with her. But I would like to put out some more books. I both memoir style that are more funny, and then some just creative writing as well, and children's books. I have a lot of ideas for mental wellness books for kids. So writing is a big part of that. More touring. I really would like to branch out from Pennsylvania. A big dream of mine is to tour like inpatient residents and outpatient residents and like visit my people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be like, guys, I found a way. Come on.
So
and just pump people up,
So you're saying I want to be an author. And,
yes.
And there you go. That's another creative, you're a creative person. That's another creative art. So it sounds to me like, the kind of work you're doing, there's an audience for that work. Writing to that effect and putting humor into that could be very interesting, I think.
And I think writing is a smart step as I'm getting older too, because I love performing. But I mean, if you ever come to one of my shows, I'm covering that stage. Now, will I be able to do that when I'm 90? I don't know, but I'll be able to write. So like that's, I'm also trying to plan for the future as well. But live performing is something I don't see me stopping ever. I think I'll be doing that as an old lady, no matter what my body looks like. I'll be doing it.
Well, Gabby, my staff loves you. That's how I keep. They brought all this to me, and I was like, all right, we got to do something here. So, Gabby, thank you so much for being on Tomorrow's World Today. Well, everybody, that's another edition of Tomorrow's World Today. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, Gabby.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tomorrow's World Today podcast. Join us next time as we continue to explore the worlds of inspiration, creation, innovation, and production. Discover more at tomorrowsworldtoday.com, connect with us on social media at TWT Explore, and find us wherever podcasts are available.